Let's bring in Sarah Sanders, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor. Good morning to you, Sarah.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I know you're living in Arkansas now, but you were just where Mark was, a few years ago, serving at the White House. Not even, what was it, a year and a half ago, I guess, when you left. And we wanted to ask you about the protests and then the peaceful protests, which have turned into these riots and then looting people's stores.
I think what is happening right now is truly tragic, and I think George Floyd's family calling on and asking the violence and the rioting and the looting to stop is something that everybody should be listening to. This all started because of the horrific incident of what happened to their family member, to George Floyd. And for them to come out and publicly call on people to stop, I think should give everyone some pause, and hopefully people will start to listen. No one is talking about the fact of what happened was horrible. Nobody disagrees with that. Everyone agrees that that should never happen, and certainly never happen in this country. But at the same time, allowing people to run wild through the streets, destroying businesses, other people getting injured, some people even dying because of this, that's not going to move us forward. We have to have law and order. We certainly should allow people to peacefully protest, but things are starting to get out of hand, and we need to be able to bring that order back to our country so we can have the discussion on how we move forward and how we do that together.
Well, Sarah, speaking of moving forward, in the city of Minneapolis are actually talking about moving forward and dismantling the police department in the wake of George Floyd's death. Meanwhile, there are, because of this movement, the George Floyd movement right now, it's become kind of a perfect storm, because that's the background to the fact that overall crime has been down across the country. And then because the economy has taken a hit with COVID, suddenly all sorts of communities are going to have to make budget cuts. New York City is going to be $9 billion short on tax revenue, and that's why they're talking about perhaps cutting $1 billion from the police budget. You look at Los Angeles out west, there's a push to cut between $100 and $150 million from their budget. In New York City, $1 billion, as I mentioned. In Phoenix, $186 million in cuts. And in Nashville, residents are calling for cuts for an additional $2.6 million for police. We hear so many people saying this is the time to increase funding, but those communities are talking about going the other way.
I think one of the worst parts that could come out of this is that we forget so many of the heroic things that our police and first responders do on the daily basis. The New Yorkers that are crying for police officers to be defunded. Let's not forget they were some of the first people that ran in to rescue and help people on 9/11. When there is a drug overdose, they're the first ones on the scenes. When there's a car crash, they're the first ones on the scenes trying to help people. And let's not take away and forget some of those heroic things that so many of these police officers around the country have done. That doesn't mean that there haven't been some horrible things that have been done, and that those individual officers should face punishment, severe punishment, when they don't follow their own rules. But at the same time, we cannot punish everyone for the sins of a few, and that's what they're trying to do. And I think that that would be a horrible mistake, and we have to maintain the support for those officers that keep us safe and protect us on the daily basis, and not let those handful that have done terrible things ruin the reputation of everyone.
Good point, Sarah. And when we really broaden this to that map Steve was showing about this defunding police, you're getting to the fundamental decision that this country's about to enter a debate over whether or not we should stand firmly behind the rule of law and protect life and property and have the necessary resources to do it. Brian Dean Wright, a former CIA officer, was on Tucker last night and had passionate words about that debate. Listen.
Put it all together. And the piece that you mentioned, no more police because we're going to defund those folks. We can't put forward the National Guard because that would be escalation. So now we take off the military from the table. What does that leave, Tucker? Let me tell you what it leaves. Vigilante justice.
That's exactly
It's you
right.
and me and everybody watching this program arming ourselves. Is that how we run a republic? No, sir, it is not. And you do not want a country that goes there. And that is precisely where the nation is headed. And we need for all of our leadership to understand that. And if Secretary Esper doesn't get it, doesn't understand that the oath is to protect ourselves from threats, both foreign and domestic, by God, get the hell out of the Pentagon and let somebody lead who gets it. Because that is the oath that he took, that I took, and that the people of this country demand of our leadership in this moment, because we are on fire. Someone do something about it.
Keyword there, Sarah. Who is going to be the one to lead? Is that leader going to be President Trump, despite the criticism he's taking?
I think it has to be, because he's the only one talking about the rule of law. He's the only one that is pushing for us to have law and order in this country. Without it, we are not America, and we are not the America that we all love. That is one of the things and fundamental parts of who we are as a society, is that we are people that follow rules. But let's not also forget one of the most important things about America, one of the things that makes us so unique and so special, is that we value all life. We value human life in all forms, and that is what sets us apart from so many countries across the face of this planet. And we absolutely cannot get away from that, or we lose who we are as a country, and that will fundamentally change who we are. And we cannot allow that to happen. And I think that's why we need leaders like Donald Trump to step up and talk about the rule of law and talk about the value that we place on human life, and never forget that that is who we are as a country.
Yeah, every life is important, and that's who we are as Americans. If you listen to Joe Biden, though, he says there's a percentage of them that are not good. Listen to this.
And the words the president says matter. So when a president stands up and divides people all the time, you're going to get the worst of us to come out. Do we really think this is as good as we can be as a nation? I don't think the vast majority of people think that. There are probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there that are just not very good people. But that's not who we are. The vast majority of the people are decent. We have to appeal to that, and we have to unite people, bring them together, bring them together.
Is he right? Do you agree with that? 10 to 15% of our country, not good people?
Not at all. And I agree with one thing that he said. We have to come together and we have to unite. Unfortunately, he's not the person that can do that, because he is saying things divisive and saying 15% of our country aren't good people. Americans at our very essence, at our very core, are the best of what has touched place on this planet. I mean, the idea that 15% of Americans are not good people is not only appalling, but it's the exact type of rhetoric that is dividing the country. Joe Biden, every single day, is politicizing this instead of coming up with solutions and trying to bring the country together. He's doing exactly what he is saying shouldn't be happening. And so I think while I agree that we need to come together as a country, I fundamentally disagree that Joe Biden has any ability to do that. And I don't think that most of America will put their faith behind them when it comes to the end of the day in November, because I think he's showing us every single day that he's not that person that can bring us together. And hopefully he will spend some more time out in the country, get out of that basement bunker a little more often, and realize that 15% of this country is not bad people, and see the greatness of America and the greatness of our people.
Joe Biden needs to do the math. 15% of this country is 50 million people. He's going to have to do some explaining later today, because that is just jaw-dropping. Sarah, thank you very much for joining us from your basement bunker in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Thank you, Steve.
All right.